Yaskin Corley, since the cost of living crisis took hold...
Just to move the motion.
I move the motion, Yaskin Corley. And since the cost of living crisis took hold, households have chased every possible avenue to cut costs. But there comes a time when there's nothing left to cut. So many households find themselves now in this position. For mortgage borrowers, the cost of living crisis has opened up a whole new front. At the end of 2021, inflation soared, driven by supply chain disruptions as pandemic restrictions were lifted across the globe, and was further turbocharged by Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine. Since the summer of last year, the ECB has responded to inflation by hiking its interest rates. So far, its main lending rate has risen by 3%, and this is the most severe round of interest rate hikes in decades. The impact will be acute for many. It has been immediate for some, with their mortgage repayments set to rise by thousands of euros this year. A new source of anxiety is bearing down on them. Another blow, another drop in their living standards, another squeeze on their disposable income. And now is the time, in our opinion, to introduce targeted temporary mortgage interest relief to support them. There are over 700,000 outstanding mortgage accounts on primary or family homes. And we know that the interest rate hikes by the ECB are impacting mortgage borrowers differently. Retail banks have not yet passed on these rate hikes in full to their variable and fixed rate customers, but they have started with further rate hikes expected in the time ahead. For almost 200,000 borrowers on a tracker rate, the impact is significant and it is immediate. To give an example, a borrower on a tracker rate with €150,000 outstanding on their mortgage will see their monthly mortgage repayments rise by more than €2,600 this year. There is also another category of borrowers, many of whom are with the lender they didn't want to be with or chose to be with. Those are mortgage loans that were sold off to vulture funds. There are more than 100,000 Irish families, borrowers, whose mortgages are now held by non-banks, 65,000 of which are on variable or tracker rates. Vulture funds are now hiking their rates aggressively, with many borrowers are now facing interest rates as high as 7.5%. They have no option to switch. They have no option to fix the rate. Many of these vultures offer no alternatives. I was contacted recently by a mortgage borrower, Rachel, whose mortgage was sold by Permanent TSB to Start Mortgages. She's a full-time carer for her son who has cerebral palsy. By January, she had received 4 letters from Start Mortgages, each informing her of a further rate hike. She will be paying over €4,000 in additional interest this year than she was last year. In her own words, Rachel tells me, "Hikes across the board from diesel, electricity, gas and food are barely sustainable. But to have the constant fear every month of the next increase coming and how to finance the previous month's increase is inhumane. It has become the norm now that due to this severe financial strain on us, we now have to pick and choose what therapies and hospital appointments we can afford for our son to attend." Those were Rachel's words. Another borrower who contacted me has her mortgage held by Pepper. She's a single parent. She'll be paying €2,800 more in additional interest as a result of these rate hikes. In her own words, she says, "I have no option to fix. I work part-time in order to bring my kids to school. This is causing me huge stress and anxiety, and I am in fear of further hikes." Many households now face, as the real stories of real lives that I have relayed makes clear, acute financial pressure, Yaskin Corley. They have received 3, 4 and 5 letters through the door, and they face a prospect of a 6th letter next month when the ECB hikes their interest rates again in 4 weeks' time. For many families, the ability to pay their mortgage is just as crucial as the ability to pay their rent or their energy bill. The alternative to them of not doing so is arrears, increased debt and financial insecurity. So for all of these reasons, it is time to introduce timely, targeted and temporary mortgage interest relief to support those borrowers who are and will continue to struggle as a result of increased interest costs. So I call on the Government to act and on the Dáil to support our motion to reintroduce mortgage interest relief at a level of 30% of the additional interest that were charged since last June, up to a maximum benefit to an individual of €1,500.